Welcome back to the ChurchBiz podcast. My name is Josh Reeves, and I'm your host, and I'm joined by Joe Guenther. Joe's a good friend of mine, a fellow basketball player and fan, church planter in my hometown of Hutto. Joe, it's great to have you on the podcast, man.
Yeah, man. It's good to be here.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Tell us about your family.
Yeah, so got a family of four. Myself, my wife, Audra, we've been married 17 years. And then we have two daughters, Addie, who is an 8th grader, 14 years old, and Emma, who's a 7th grader, who's 12, about to be 13 years old.
That's cool, man. And tell me your current role right now.
Yeah, so currently I'm the pastor at Redeemer Hutto, pastor of vision and mission.
Okay. And tell me a little bit about your story. How did you get into church planting?
Yeah, so when we were in the DFW area back in 2018, we went to the village church just kind of on a random one-off Sunday, just kind of take a vacation, take a break. And as we're sitting there, God just kind of revealed to us an opportunity to plant churches with Acts 29, and which was very timely for us because we were kind of in a season to where we were serving in our local church, doing youth ministry, but felt as though God had something more for us. And there was this longing in our heart, almost felt like we were like in a wilderness season for a long time, and kind of got to a point of like, well, maybe God's not calling us into anything more. We're just kind of like missing the mark here on this. But that random weekend, God just kind of revealed that to us, and that kind of started that journey for us.
Yeah. And you were doing bivocational ministry at that time, correct?
Yeah. I worked for a local utility co-op there in the big country, in the Abilene area. And I was just, running facilities and special projects, stuff like that. And as well as, doing youth ministry and helping and serving our church just, whatever ways they needed.
Yeah, that's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Well, I know I'm thankful for you and your family and the ministry you guys have done at Redeemer Hutto, especially being a Hutto hippo myself. Love seeing a gospel-centered church plant there. Tell me a little bit about Redeemer Hutto. Like, just give us kind of the high-level view of what's going on at Redeemer Hutto.
Yeah. So we planted Redeemer Hutto, I guess about coming up on 30 months ago. So we're about 2.5 years old. And things are going really well. We're grateful to be in Hutto. We feel like it's a growing suburb of Austin with lots of representation from the world. I mean, just right in our city, in our community. And so being able to plant a church and grow with the community has been a fun and challenging time.
I know what it's like to plant a church. Those early days are difficult, can be difficult. What are some, but you got to look at the evidences of grace that God's doing. What are some evidences of grace you see in Redeemer Hutto?
Yeah, so some evidences of grace we've seen is, we've just seen God's kindness I feel like day after day just being poured over our local expression of faith. We're moving to an area, 3 years ago to where we didn't know anybody. I'm originally from West Texas. Moving here, again, like I said, we didn't know anybody, and looking down the road since our plant, having 30, 35 families committed to our church is just kind of mind-blowing. And so I think one of the biggest evidences of grace is just seeing God continuously bringing people into this church body, people that like we again didn't know, seeing new faces come in, and which, like I said, we're living on mission, but we're seeing that mission takes time. And so seeing God bring these families in it's just been an incredible gift that's far exceeded our expectations.
That's cool. What are some of if someone were to visit Redeemer Hutto, what are some of the basic things you guys are about, or what does kind of church life look like for you guys?
Yeah, so we meet in a local YMCA, which is kind of the community hub of Hutto. That's something unique about the culture there. There's not very many communal places to gather, and so the partnership we have with the Y is definitely also just another evidence of grace. But if someone were to come and visit us, our first hope is that they would see that we're very community driven. We want to get to know them. We truly want to know their story, know where they're from, and know what brought them to this church and the season of life that they may be in. But we also want them just to see the simplicity of how we operate. We want to keep things as simple and semi-informal as possible to make people feel comfortable, make them feel loved, make them feel welcome to come, in whatever season of life they're in. They just feel comfortable to step into our church family.
Yeah. I know I've had the chance to visit you guys a few times, and I think I would say to anyone listening, maybe that's in the Hutto area, it is a very disarming environment. Simple, down to earth people, you're welcomed, but you guys do a great job also preaching the word, leading in worship. What are maybe some of the challenges you face right now? No names, don't. I'm not saying call out people in the church, but what are some challenges you're facing as a church planter?
Yeah, man. So when I got ready to plant, I mean, you get a lot of stories from church planters, a lot of really good stories and a lot of horror stories. And it seemed as though when you plant a church, at least a consistent pattern I was seeing is, the first 3 to maybe 6 months were considered the honeymoon period. And I think for us, another, again, evidence of grace is I think we got an extended honeymoon period. In fact, I joke a lot. I think I get to hit from the handicap tee because God he's been so just overly gracious to our church family. And I think our honeymoon period probably extended, I would say 20 to 24 months. Like we had an extended period of that. And so we're seeing these last like 5-6 months, we're finally seeing like our church family, I think, finally settle into, I think, receiving Jeremy, who is my co-pastor, co-planter, and myself as their pastors. And so they're finally allowing us to kind of step into their lives and just, I think, being more and more honest and open with us, which has been a fun journey. But, once you've had that extended honeymoon period, like this is kind of hard. This is a change of pace for us, which has been a fun and yet kind of challenging pace. And I would also say that another challenge for us has been, again, when we planted 30 months ago, we were 9 families, 39 people in total. We've grown to 30 to 35 families, which is, 115, 125 people. And so we're kind of in that like mid-size range to where you still feel small and you still have that family feel to it, but you're growing bigger than I think what you're allowed to, or what I'm capable of like pastoring, because I want to be involved in people's lives as much as possible, but like that size difference is becoming more challenging. Yeah. And then so doing like admin and some of the things that like a planner's they have to do like in the early stages. Yeah. We're seeing that's becoming more and more of a burden to bear. Yeah. It's getting a little more difficult.
Yeah. I love that. The honeymoon period is both good, and yet at the same time, all those issues were there, but people are now trusting you because you've earned that trust as their pastor to really open up, and you're starting to see and get to, even though it can be hard to see those issues surface, you're starting to get to speak into those and shepherd those. And and then you mentioned it, but as a church planter, you pretty much start from day one, your job description is everything. Yeah,
absolutely.
So that's cool. And it is at each new stage, you have to adapt and change organizationally and evaluate your role and, Jeremy's role and the other leaders that are coming up's roles. So
so having to navigate those issues has been tough. And it's like, when do you step out and take a step of faith or hire somebody to help do this or whatever the case is. But it's challenging for sure.
Yeah, that's good, man. Well, that kind of leads into the second part of what I'd like to talk about in our podcast is the financial stewardship piece. And even as you're talking about the organization, obviously finances is a big part of what you have to think about as you move forward. And so I'd be curious, just from your perspective, why do you think wise and faithful stewardship is important in local church and even specifically to church plants?
Yeah, Yeah, I would say that wise and faithful stewardship is not only important, but I believe it's vital to the church. I think there's a component of your trust in God being grown. Again, moving from West Texas 3 years ago to our context, having to support Race through COVID, like all those things, looking back, I realized God was calling us to trust Him all the more, and then it was Him showing us how, one, He's loving, He is kind, but He is provider in our everyday life, and so growing that trust, I think it's just wise. Growing in our trust of God is for our good, and so being able to trust in God for our everyday needs is definitely needed, especially when you step out, like I said, to an unknown location, to a very expensive location. Like, so just all those components really, I think, helped disciple and shape us where we're at, starting in day one. And I think moving forward, wise and faithful stewardship also, it builds trust with our people that we're called to shepherd and to serve and to love. And if God is using the church as a window of sorts for the outsider to look in and to see like how good and sweet the gospel is, I think how we steward things, and it's not just our finances, I think it's how we steward our time, talent, and our treasure. It's really how we framed it with our church. How we steward those things really reflects who God is, and really shows the people like there's a better way, and that way is found in Christ.
Yeah, that's really good. And I think you hit on something unique to church planters is it's not just that you're helping your congregation walk in faith or give in faith and grow their giving and trust in God, but you, as you step out to plant, have to really experience that yourself, that God would provide people, that He would provide funding, that He'd provide the different gifts and talents that you need. And so I think as a planter, you have a unique way of connecting with what you're asking your church to do in giving, in that you've kind of had to see God do that just to be existing as a church. So
yeah, for sure.
That's really cool. And a unique perspective. Do you have any ways that you, and kind of your leadership team tries to cultivate a culture of stewardship in your church? Any practices you guys do?
Yeah. So again, we're a young church. And so when you start off, or when you plant, as you know, like everything is done like from the planter. And so all that's in-house, and which, there's a level of complexity and I mean, even trust in that to start off with. But as you grow, you want to grow in such a way that, again, you're cultivating trust. You're building that trust with your congregation. But part of that trust is accountability. And so one thing that we've just tried to do in stewardship is, like, as we're growing, with time, when those pockets of seasons are just right, like, what are ways we can do, like, what are things that we can do in order to build more trust and more accountability for us, and to try to bridge that gap. And one of the things that we've done early and often is we send out yearly statements of giving and kind of where we're at financially, and we're trying to now grow that into quarterly statements, just more and more transparency. And part of that is us building a finance team. And so we've just recently commissioned a few deacons that are over finances to help, again, carry that load, but again, help just create more and more transparency, which again, in returns, creates accountability. And so as we're doing that, we're just going to try to be as transparent as possible. And so quarterly statements is kind of been the new thing we're kind of working towards. We hadn't just got there just yet, but it's something that we want to definitely see, shared with our church on a more consistent basis.
That's really good. That's a lesson we had to learn at our local church, is that communication is key to trust. And for you guys to be able to communicate, because with the giving statement, you're communicating back to someone and letting them self-reflect on what they're offering to God, what they're giving financially.
Yeah.
And you're also able to communicate what the needs are of the church. And so those are two important things, I think, for people to have regular communication. I love the quarterly rhythm. I think that's a great and wise thing. And I think that's a great kind of organizational communication. And then there's kind of the organizational communication and the communication about what are the needs and what are we asking people to give. And then there's also, I think, a teaching piece of giving, which I'd be curious how do you guys integrate that into your worship services? Yeah.
So I would say one of the like a really big thing that I feel like I learned through my residency and just through my training, getting ready to plant, was I heard a lot of pastors and planters say that they regretted not talking about giving earlier. And I probably fall into those same categories. I don't like talking about it. I wish we could like somehow sidestep that, or we could whatever, fill that void somehow, some other way. But it is part of our discipleship process. And so like knowing that, hearing that from planters, regretting that, they waited, 7-8 years before they really started about talking about giving and teaching about that. That's something that I just decided early on that I felt like I wanted to walk our church through. And just kind of face that challenge head on. And so as we're 2.5 years old, every year we try to highlight some sort of like spiritual discipline that we can grow on. And so as a church, we just committed early on, the third spiritual discipline, a focus for us has been like generosity and just highlighting it, talking about it, which has been really good because it's part of our story. We've had a lot of outside help financially as we're still sitting at, I think, about 62% financially independent. So we still even have room to grow in-house. And so just talking about that, I think early and often, talking about that like as an undercurrent for a year, as we're leading into our third year of just life, I feel like has been really beneficial and really receptive. I think some people just seeing the information of like in our story, our context, 80% of Redeemer partners gave, in some shape, form, or capacity in the past 12 months, but only 40% are given consistently. Like sharing that information has also just been like really beneficial. But we haven't just like really worked in to our liturgy like a set time or space for that. Again, that's a conversation we had about a month ago that we want to grow in, and we're going to start, I think, making those changes towards that. Just to more familiarize people with that and show them the need of like part of stewardship is ownership. And so just like inviting them into this with us. Yeah,
that's really good. You guys have done a great job of communicating, building trust, being clear about your need. I love the metrics that you're doing, even I think setting goals of, hey, we're this much percent, especially in a church plant, taken care of by the internal giving of the church, and we'd love to be at this point. That gives people a goal to strive towards. So I think that's really helpful.
Yeah.
And then it's not like you're individually calling people out, but you are giving them a reflection of, hey, 80% are giving, 40% are giving regularly. It's an opportunity for people to consider, hey, what am I doing? Yeah. How am I contributing?
What's
to this?
my part of that?
Yeah. What's my part of that? That's really good, man. You guys are, I'll say, just from looking in as a friend and fan of Redeemer Hutto, you guys are doing a great job with financial stewardship, and I think there's a lot of trust in your people because of that. So
yeah, man, I appreciate that.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. Well, we've talked we've talked some finances. We got to have a little fun, right?
Yeah.
People aren't just listening for our financial expertise. Wait. I forgot. I give you an opportunity to ask the experts, because it's not me, but Chris and Kevin. Maybe I could ask them.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions? You don't have to, but do you have any questions that you want to get free advice on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, I do.
Okay.
This was brought up. Again, we had our first finance team meeting, I guess, I don't know, a month ago, 30 days ago. And one of the things that was brought up was, so we have a little bit of money sitting in the savings account, not doing anything. And it's like, hey, how can we utilize that or invest? And so, like, as a nonprofit, can we like do money markets or CDs? Like, is that okay? Is that not okay? Like, what are ways in which we can like grow money that's just like sitting in an account?
Yeah, right. That's a great question. Because you want to be wise, especially if you're having money that is sitting in a bank account for, it might be there for a couple of years. Now, as a church, you're not trying to sit there and get fat stacks, right?
Correct.
But as a church plant, you do have reserves. You do have potentially funds that you're saving for future projects, and so you're going to have money sitting in the bank. And what I would say is, I mean, this is just my personal advice, is I wouldn't put it in a high risk type of investment. Obviously, I think some churches got in trouble for doing crypto a couple of years ago and got busted. Even the stock market, that's just, I wouldn't recommend that. But something safe like a CD, something like a money market account that gives you a set return, that's a guaranteed return. You're not going to be making like big bucks on it, but it's going to at least help you fight inflation. Because if money's just sitting there earning no interest, it's essentially less money tomorrow than it was today because of inflation. So we do at our church, we do CDs with the same bank that we bank with. So I'd shop around, find the best commercial CD rate that you can, and put it in a shorter term CD so that you don't lock it up for 3 years, obviously, but maybe a 9 month, 6 month, and then just have it auto renew until you need it. That would be my recommendations, probably a CD. I don't know as much about money markets. That's not my area, but I have a lot of churches that do CDs. Some do money markets as well, but whoever you guys bank with, see what they offer, and then maybe shop 2 other banks for rates and go with the one that's best rate. That would be my advice. Yeah,
that's great.
Look at that. I didn't even have to ask Chris or Kevin, who are our CPAs at ChurchBiz.
I think you're officially an expert now.
Yeah, I'm an expert. I can be an expert in that question. So fun time. Okay, fun time. If you're just here for business, you can go ahead and turn the podcast off. But if you're here for fun, here we go. So also, I just want to comment, nice choice of Texas Longhorn shirt. Was that intentional today?
In part, yeah.
Did Chris Maloney get to you before I...
he did not. He did not. My kids did. So
all right, that's okay. You guys are number 1 in the nation, so congratulations in football.
Thank you.
So do you have any fun questions? I gave you some topics beforehand. Do you have any fun questions before I go to mine?
I do. I have one fun question for sure.
Okay.
I appreciate you acknowledging the UT shirt. With you being a Red Raider, Texas Tech guy, what's the relationship now moving forward now that Texas has moved over to the SEC? I mean, there's some bad blood between Tech and Texas, but I mean, now we're not in the same conference anymore. I don't take offense to this. Any Red Raider fans out there, don't send me an email that you hate me or whatever, but I'm not sure Tech and Texas was ever in the same league. It was more like a big brother, little brother thing.
It all comes out now.
What's the relationship now that Texas has moved SEC? Can that relationship, can it be reconciled from a Raider fan?
Yeah. Well, part of and we're talking mainly football. That's where the main rivalries are, because basketball we dominate. So, football, I don't know. I feel like Tech is not quite returned to relevance in college football. We've struggled. We've had 500, barely above 500 seasons. So at this point, Tech fans, I think, are a little apathetic. That's the state of Tech. We're waiting to see. Maybe we beat Arizona State this weekend. We'll be back, gung ho.
Yeah.
So it feels like, I would say, my personal hatred towards UT. I just admitted, I guess I have that, but has weakened a little bit.
Yeah.
And as Tech becomes irrelevant, I do find myself more apt to root for UT, because they're not we're not really playing each other. I think when they left for the SEC, that felt kind of like your big brother just ditching you and not even hanging out anymore.
Yeah. He went away to the
he went away
world
to hang out with his big boy friends and has no time for you anymore. So I think it's maybe Tech fans are not in the greatest place right now, and so there's not as much animosity. I would say that's the state of it. Yeah,
that's good. That's good to hear.
Will it be hard to see UT win a national championship? That might be hard though.
Yeah.
That would be. but we're not even close to that. So yeah.
Well, even when they're in the same conference, I was a fan of both, and people say you can't do that.
Yeah.
But I do it every day, and it's fine. But the reason I have the Texas shirt really is because last year during the Red River Shootout, we were traveling to DFW and we had to stop at Buc-ee's, and so my family went in to use the restroom because, of course, they have the cleanest restrooms ever. And Buc-ee's was just full of UT fans, and my daughters came out of Buc-ee's and they just pledged their allegiance to UT. They're like, "This was cool. This was amazing." So I stayed out and pumped gas, so I don't even know what happened in there, but they were just like mesmerized by the fandom. And so they came out and they're like, I think we're UT fans. Yeah. And I'm like, that's a big statement. You're like, are you sure? And they're like, we're pretty sure. And so I'm kind of riding this wave with my daughters.
Yeah.
And hoping that maybe one day they stay around, maybe go to Texas or something. That'd be cool to keep them close.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. That's respectable.
Yeah.
Do you have another question? Another fun question?
I do.
Let's throw it out there.
Okay. So yeah, my second question would be with talking about the greatest of all time. We're talking about the GOAT category here. Being a basketball guy that you are, we both are, love the sport. Is Steph Curry, is he, now let me preface this. Hands down, MJ is the GOAT. Changed the game, changed the culture. He went viral before viral was like going viral was cool, right?
Yeah.
But if we're talking in terms of like the greatest of all time, changing the game forever, does Steph Curry not get any love in that category? And I think, like I said, of course, everybody wants to jump from MJ to LeBron.
Yeah.
And LeBron's great, but LeBron has followed MJ's footsteps, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Whereas Steph Curry has completely changed the game.
Yeah.
Being undersized, underdeveloped, incredible shooter. He's not only like broken records, but he is like smashing records.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, I love Steph. I haven't always loved the Warriors, but I've always loved Steph. He's just, as someone who enjoys 3-point shooting, like he's just the king. Sorry, Reggie Miller.
Yeah.
But and what he did this summer in the Olympics, I don't know if you watched that gold medal game.
I did. It
was unbelievable.
Yeah.
It was really cool to see him in a high pressure moment pull out like vintage Steph Curry. Yeah. Even at, I think he's 34 or 35 now. So I think Steph has got to be in the top 7 conversation.
Okay. Top 7.
It's still hard for me to think just like, you put LeBron on a team, it's you put prime LeBron on a team, it's instantly a contender. Steph, I think he definitely gets his, but I don't know if he can do as many things as LeBron. But I would definitely put him in top 7, and I would say he's the best shooter of all time. He's the best combo point guard, shooting guard of all time. Yeah. It's just that small forward to power forward position. MJ could kind of go in the small forward, I guess.
Yeah.
Can do so many things and cover so many gaps that sometimes the point guard, shooting guard can't carry that much. So that's the only reason I wouldn't maybe put him in the MJ, LeBron, Kobe.
Okay.
Although I'd like to be interested to see his stat comparison with Kobe because Kobe was more of a shooting guard. So that's but I have high respect for Steph. I think, and he did change the game. Like you didn't see people shooting 20, 30 threes a game in the night, prior to him. So yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. All 3 guys you just mentioned with Curry are definitely in my top 5. So
yeah,
with you'd like this Bill Russell being my number 5 because dude, Russell's he was just a winner. He just won all the time.
And he's a Celtic, which is
and he's a Celtic, which is
very important. I'm a Celtic fan. Yeah. So champs, maybe.
That's it.
So, man, thanks for coming on.
Yeah.
And appreciate it. And we'll wrap it up for now, and we'll see those that are listening or hear. I guess we don't really hear or see you, but we will talk with you next time. Joe, also, I'll say this too, basketball-wise, man, I think we play with a group of guys, and Joe's probably my number 1 rated basketball player. So it's great to have the best basketball player I play with on the show. So you have any you can't deny that. Don't deny it.
Man, I'm going to take the compliment. Thank you.
Okay.
But But yeah, man, we're just old.
Yeah, we are getting old. We'll talk to you guys later.
Yeah, man. Thanks.
Thanks for listening to the ChurchBiz podcast. Make sure to subscribe and check out our website, www.churchbiz.com, to learn more about the accounting services we provide and for stewardship resources made to help your local church.